Alright, give it to me straight. Patrick Schwarzenegger got cast as Gus Everett in the Beach Read movie. Okay, now give it to me gay. It's like if Chris Pratt got cast as Hal Pendragon.
Oh my god! Whenever there's a movie adaptation for a beloved book, it's never gonna fully live up to every fan's expectations, especially when the cast list is revealed and there's a lot of stakes involved with protecting the sanctity of the characters. But I have never seen backlash so universal for someone's casting as I have with Beach Read by Emily Henry. There were so many people talking about how upset they were on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. There was a hashtag that got spread called #NotMyGus. The director had to limit her comments on Instagram because so many people were disagreeing with the casting for this character, and even the author herself has not made any public statements about this character being cast, even though she had been quick to do so for previous characters. So for this video, I want to talk about why everyone is so mad about the situation, and also lead to a larger discussion about the hollywoodification of stories and how we tend to sanitize stories in media, as well as the question of, can privileged people create characters from less privileged backgrounds, or will there always be a degree of inauthenticity, or should that even be relevant when it comes to acting another character? These are questions that I think about sometimes and I don't have the answer to myself, but I would love to hear what you think, especially after hearing all of the tea. But I'll basically use this specific situation with Beach Read as the most recent example for this question, and I can also provide some background about these books since I've read most of Emily Henry's works and I have enjoyed them as well. She is such a prolific romance author, and I remember first discovering her through Book of the Month, which is a sponsor of today's video. Their mission is to bring the best new fiction forward, so every month they go through hundreds of book titles and curate 5 to 8 of the best releases for you to choose to be delivered to your door. It comes in this beautiful blue box here, and for the month of May, I have chosen 2 books. The first book that I chose was The Last Contract of Isako by Fonda Lee. This is a space opera book that I felt like would be a great addition to Asian Readathon for AAPI month. I also got Seek the Traitor's Son by Veronica Roth. I know she's releasing another Divergent book, but I'm personally more interested in her other original dystopian fantasy books, and this is one of them. But there are so many genres that Book of the Month has beyond sci-fi and fantasy. They also have contemporary, romance, literary, thrillers, so many more that you can think of. You can actually get your first book for only $5 plus a free mini tote. You can get all of this for $5 if you use the code FLORAL. Now let's get into this whole situation with Emily Henry's latest book to movie adaptation. So let me explain more of the background and context for those of you who are not familiar with Emily Henry or are not part of the book world. Basically, Emily Henry is one of the most popular contemporary romance authors right now. She has a very solid catalog of standalone, buzzy romance books that have sold millions of copies and are super popular on BookTok. Within the past few years of each book coming out, they've all been bestsellers, and now there is going to be this cinematic universe that she's created because nearly all of these books are in development to become movies and shows. We saw the first movie adaptation with People We Meet on Vacation earlier this year. I actually reacted to that movie on my channel as well, and now we have had recent casting development for an upcoming movie called Beach Read. This is a highly anticipated movie because this was the book that pretty much launched Emily Henry's career into what we know now. So a lot of people view this as a very foundational book, and the premise for this is that basically it is about 2 rival authors. One is a romance writer named January, and then the other is a literary fiction writer named Augustus or Gus. Both of them are stuck in creative ruts, but then they end up becoming neighbors for these beach houses that they rent over the summer. So in order to help with their creative rut and change things up a little bit, they agree to swap genres. So for once, January is going to try to write a serious novel and Gus is going to try to write a happy romance. And this ends up being a summer of challenges for them, not just in writing, but in personal challenges as well, because there are some personal revelations that they have about grief and love. There are themes about loss and finding hope in love again. And again, it cemented this author and her particular brand of romance books because the stories focus on more than just a relationship between the 2 characters. It was also about their individual lives and about life in general. So it helped make the characters feel more grounded. And so Beach Read became a fan favorite among her books. That was like like the OG. This year, with the movie being developed, there have been some casting news. The first that came out is the casting for the main female character, January. It was announced that Phoebe Denevor would play this character. She is most known for her role in the first season of Bridgerton. The director for this movie shared a news article announcing this casting and had only one sentence for the caption, which said, "Within 5 minutes of meeting Phoebe Denevor, I knew we had found our January Andrews." This news was met with positive reception. You can scroll through Instagram and see people celebrating this and saying things like, "I can't get over how perfect this casting is, genuinely. This is absolutely incredible. This is perfect. She's perfect. It makes me so happy because I adore both the character and this actress. This casting is so good. Cannot explain how much I love this. Absolute peak choice. Brilliant casting. Perfect." And then 2 months later, the casting for the male lead, Gus, got revealed. This had a different tone altogether, both in the director's caption and the comments afterward. So Yulin had posted the screenshot revealing that Patrick Schwarzenegger would star opposite Phoebe Denevor. She wrote a much longer caption explaining this choice. "Patrick is a slow burn," is what I wrote in my notes after meeting him for the first time. "There was something about the way he talked about his feelings on love and romance that I couldn't forget, but I was unconvinced we had found our Gus because I knew we had to be exhaustive in our efforts given how important this character is to readers. We saw a lot of men for this role. We reviewed a lot of tapes, sent a lot of avails checks, and took a lot of meetings over a 6-month period. I've always maintained that we are not casting a character, but a relationship. Once we knew Phoebe would be our January, my efforts became more focused and specific, not on who would play the best Gus according to the text, but who would play the best Gus opposite our specific January. That meant in-person director sessions and chemistry reads with Phoebe. The moment Patrick sat across from her, there was something electric in the room with us. There's magic to chase here," I wrote in my notes afterwards. I checked in with Phoebe after the reads and she said, "It's obviously Patrick, isn't it?" And I thought to myself, so she feels it too. See you in theaters soon. The comments afterward were not happy. Pretty much most of the feedback has been negative, where people would say things like, "Dev Patel is right there. Gus is not Republican. It's not too late to recast. Be for real in the nicest way possible. Girl, you have Emily Henry's best book on your hands. Make the casting director reconsider. Oh, I'm not hungry anymore. My favorite book ruined with one post. Will absolutely not be watching. No, God, please, no, no. This has become my nightmare. My favorite book boyfriend will stay in the book this time. It was supposed to be Logan Lerman. Girl, it's not too late. Yikes, not my Gus. Hey, so this is terrible news. Recast, please. Waited months for Gus's casting just for them to cast someone who looks like Phoebe's long-lost brother. Oh, okay. The list goes on, and it got so much to the point where the director had to limit her comments so that people would stop going on and on about how much they hated this casting. What's interesting is that the author of these books herself has not really said anything about Patrick Schwarzenegger being cast as Gus. She was very quick to announce Phoebe being cast as January, and when the actors were revealed for People We Meet on Vacation, she was also quick to announce that. Pretty much within 24 hours of the news, she would post it. But this time, there's just crickets. She has avoided mentioning him altogether. So people are theorizing, given the discrepancy with how quick she was to announce all of the other characters right away, and now with her saying nothing about the guy, even though it's been 24 hours and now a week and now several weeks at this point, this could mean one of two things. Either she disagrees with the casting as well, and maybe she was overruled in that decision, or she wants to avoid getting internet flack. Because obviously, if she were to announce it, that's going to open a whole can of worms with people flooding her comments and disagreeing with the casting. I think both reasons would be totally valid, so I totally understand why she has decided to be silent about the whole thing. Even she has put a lot of high stakes into this casting, because before any decisions were made about who would play these characters, she had shared this specifically in a newsletter. "I know that many of you, like I, hold Gus extremely close to your heart. I actually can say that across all the adaptations we're working on, I've never felt more pressure to get it right than I do with this one. It's so important to me that you know we're leaving no stone unturned in this process. When we find our Gus, he will be the best possible Gus for this version of the story. Some of your favorites won't be available in our shooting window, some have a pay quote that won't fall within our budget, and some just won't be interested. Despite all of those caveats, let it be said, I'm not worried. We are looking at some seriously amazing Gus's, and we will find the right person for the job. And while rumors will swirl in the meantime, just know that when there's something to report, I will tell you personally right here in the grocery list. For context, the grocery list is the name of her newsletter, and she has not mentioned Patrick Schwarzenegger being cast as Gus at all in this newsletter since it was first announced back in early April. So some people believe this makes it even more evident that with her silence, maybe she's unhappy with the casting too. I don't know, we can't really say for sure one way or another, but I think regardless of the reason, I do suspect she will be more cautious about making promises related to the movie in the future. Because whether she likes the guy or not, it does suck to see backlash over a project you were excited about, especially over a character that had the most pressure for you to get it right, according to her words. So now this begs the question, why are people so mad? It's a combination of a few things. Like I said, this is one of Emily's most popular books and maybe the most beloved book. The male lead is considered top tier, where some people have said out of all the castings, he's like the #1 person they should not mess up, even the author herself. But really the main reason is because there is such a wide discrepancy between the character of Gus and the actor portraying him. In the Beach Read book, Gus is a character who is a literary novelist with dark hair, olive skin, brooding energy. He's described as handsome, but not in a leading man way. He grew up in an economically unstable environment. He grew up with a father who was abusive towards him and his mother. He worked as a graveyard digger to make ends meet. He went to a state school in Michigan and basically clawed his way into success. And the main girl sees him as someone who is snobby and pretentious, but he's not pretentious in like the Ivy League academia way. Him being a snob is something that he developed through years of study in being a writer, because he doesn't have that financial safety net. He doesn't have a stable family to depend on. So his arrogance is rooted in the fear and insecurity that one day he'll be back to where he started. This is the exact opposite energy of Patrick Schwarzenegger, who basically comes from generational wealth. He is a Nepo baby who's descended from both Hollywood and political royalty because his father is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he is part of the Kennedy family tree. He has a side career flipping high-end real estate in LA, where he will buy and upgrade modern farmhouses in West Hollywood and Santa Monica and sell them for millions of dollars. He's also expressed pride in being a Republican and being a supporter of his father's legacy. He supports Israel and has posted about it on social media. And his look and vibe overall is someone who's more polished, glossy, clean-cut, old money, country club, business frat bro. So politically, economically, and even appearance-wise, it just seems completely off the mark for Gus's character. But you know, actors don't have to have the same shared experiences as the characters that they play. That's why it's called acting. So maybe his acting skills are just that good, where he can fully embody a working class guy. But the way that the director worded her statement for why she cast him has added more doubts for people to really believe that is the case. Going back to Yulin's post, she says that he wasn't an immediate pick for the character, but they decided to cast around the chemistry with the chosen actress. So they cast based on finding the female lead first and then cast for the male lead around his chemistry with her, instead of as individual characters with chemistry on top. And people disagree with that decision because Emily Henry's books are more character driven and they're not solely romance focused. So people believe that it should have been just as important for the actor to actually reflect Gus as much as the actress should have reflected January. What I find interesting is the reasoning for his casting being solely based on chemistry with the actress. To me, that indicates that either this actress just had no chemistry with any other guy that she auditioned, or maybe she had some chemistry with people, but somehow Patrick just blew it out the water and the tension was like electrifying, according to the director's words. So I will be very curious to see this chemistry on screen when the movie comes out, because I tend to find that people conflate chemistry as two conventionally attractive white people standing next to each other or having their faces close to one another. I also discovered that Patrick Schwarzenegger and Phoebe Dynevor's fiance both invest in the same company. And the company has nothing to do with the film because it's a sports media company, but it makes me wonder, like, do they just have the same chemistry because they're in the same Hollywood circle? Is it because the actress's fiance in her actual life has the same taste as Patrick Schwarzenegger in companies to invest in, so maybe they got like the similar vibe going on? I don't know, to me it kind of just seems like two white people got along with each other really well. And if they do end up having great chemistry, it still begs the question of, are they appropriate to play January and Gus, or are they more suited to play a different movie altogether where they can properly be a couple with their own specific dynamic? Also in her caption, she briefly mentions that she couldn't stop thinking about his thoughts on love and romance. But like I said before, the appeal of a lot of Emily Henry's books is that they don't just focus on the romance, they also play into like the wider view of life. So the aspects of grief and trauma and financial insecurity are intertwined with those things, and that also affects the way that the character Gus would view romance and how he goes about the world and how he even interacts with January. He calls her a princess because he knows that her family background is much more privileged and she has had a more comfortable childhood, and that kind of adds to like the tension between the two of them. So by casting Patrick Schwarzenegger and writing the caption that she did, it makes people wonder, are these aspects about him being lost in the adaptation? Is his character being fully understood beyond just having chemistry with someone? Is this character's snobbery being interpreted as a literary snob, as almost like a crutch for the things that he's had to go through and something that he had to cultivate for the sake of financial security? Or is it just being diluted to, yeah, he's an attractive snob? It's more so reflective of like the bigger question, which is, what are we prioritizing in telling the story? And are we prioritizing the right things? So some people are wondering, oh my gosh, with all of this flack, is there going to be a recast, or can we pressure them into recasting this character? And I feel like that is extremely unlikely in my personal opinion. I think it would be impossible to recast even after contracts and announcements. Technically, I'm sure they can pull back if they wanted to, but I think the main reason why they wouldn't is that it would set a bad precedent to show that if there's enough fans complaining and flooding your comments and basically harassing you about this, then you will buy to their rage. I would imagine that making this movie is probably going to be very nerve-wracking for the director and the actor with this looming over their heads, because the pressure seems to be quite high now. I'm not even like a Beach Read girly. I've enjoyed her other books more, and so I don't have like that personal investment in the story. I'm not the one heartbroken by this. I'm just viewing this as a third-party observer that based on all these factors, it seems like it's going to be an uphill battle. I am skeptical of how well he's going to pull it off, not because I think actors need to share the same experiences as the characters, but because I do find that celebrities who are obviously privileged, clean-cut, and Republican do have a harder time portraying someone who is like normal or from like a humbler background. It's not just the class disconnect that is a blocker from authenticity, but also in general, I find that Republicans just make such shitty art. This is my personal bias. Republicans do not make good art. So there are just way too many hurdles for this guy. And also, if the biggest hardship that Patrick Schwarzenegger is gonna have in his life is the fact that people don't like him being cast as Gus, that already speaks a lot, you know? What the situation does make me wonder though is the general question of whether privileged actors can play characters from poorer circumstances believably. And if we were to go even broader with art in general, do you think that artists who come from wealth can create good art that involves any depiction of economic struggle? I would like to think yes, but I have read quite a few books where the characters are poor and I could tell the authors did not actually have those experiences because of the ways that they approached it. Sometimes it feels more like of an aesthetic or a vibe rather than something grounded or true. Or sometimes even if like the author is well researched or academic about it, at the end of the day, those class issues are written more as a thought experiment rather than something that shows real understanding. I think it is possible, but it's harder to execute. So in the case of Patrick Schwarzenegger, if Gus is going to be a fully fleshed out character in the movie, then he will have to meet the challenges of portraying all of those nuances. Because when you grow up with financial security versus insecurity, it really shapes the way that you move and speak and react to stress. And without those firsthand experiences, actors and even artists in general will have to learn from those nuances instead of drawing from memory. And so that requires like a lot of discipline and humility and also just good writing to make it feel real. But who knows, maybe Gus won't be a fully fleshed character in the movie. Like maybe he will be more of a one-note love interest. I think that was some of the sentiments from People We Meet on Vacation, because in that movie, the male lead was very much diluted to a more surface level character where we didn't really get to know much about him or his background story or him as a person. And so maybe Gus will be written the same, and then Patrick Schwarzenegger won't have to worry about that. So maybe it's okay, right guys? This also leads me to a broader topic, which is the hollywoodification of stories. I never really put any personal investment into movie adaptations because I think most castings in general love to hire celebrities who are too clean and polished for their characters. Hollywood has an aversion to casting people who don't look beautiful. They would rather dress down a hot person for the story, but even then the hot person barely has any scratches or scars after an action scene, or if they're playing someone from like an impoverished background or someone who's like really going through it, like stranded on an island or whatever, even then that is not reflected in their hairstyling or makeup. They still always look presentable and clean. Every time I see a celebrity play a normal person, I think it's difficult for me to feel immersed because I only see them as the celebrity, especially if they have had work done on their faces or they fit the modern day standards of beauty specific to LA. Margot Robbie in Wuthering Heights is an example of that, where she has a Hollywood face and doesn't really match a period piece. Anya Taylor-Joy in The Menu is like the most egregious example I can think of. She's supposed to be like a poor sex worker from the Midwest, and I'm like, girl, you are not poor or from the Midwest. You have a rich girl face. But those things don't really matter because at the end of the day, they have a star quality to their names and they look beautiful. So when you take into consideration Hollywood's priorities and look at Emily Henry's books with that same framework, I can understand why picking her catalog for book to movie adaptations would be appealing. She has a wide catalog to adapt books to movies. She has a built-in audience of people who love her books. Her books are contemporary romance stories, which are cheaper to adapt as films and quicker to pump out. All of her characters are white, which makes casting really convenient because now you can just make the side characters people of color, but you can still keep the main characters conventionally attractive white people who have some kind of star presence in Hollywood. So her books are a very easy vehicle to basically cycle through skinny brunette women and handsome actors who are up and coming and then just change up the names with each movie. So like most book to movie adaptations, it's gonna flatten the story. What makes her book stand out is the fact that she writes couples in a way that feels grounded. They have interiority and background stories that exist outside of a romantic relationship, and that's what gives them more substance. But if you're treating these stories on the same service level as how her book covers are designed, then yeah, you're gonna get a bunch of milquetoast movies. When we look at a movie like People We Meet on Vacation, who was written by the same person who's directing Beach Read, you'll hear more of my thoughts in my reaction video, but in general, I found it to be cute in a surface level way. I think it works perfectly fine as, you know, a standard rom-com, but it does sanitize a lot of what the book was about, especially when it comes to the male lead. In the movie, he is shown as a stick in the mud and that's it. But in the book, there is so much more to him. He is the oldest of 4 brothers. His mother died in childbirth with his youngest brother. His father struggled with intense grief. All of those factors and that kind of upbringing is what led to him to be such a steady, prudent character who very much values responsibility and stability. It provides context for why in the story, another character's pregnancy scare is such a big deal for him because of how he lost his mom in childbirth. All of those things are not shown or discussed in the movie at all. There's one throwaway line in the movie where he mentions that his mom passed away, and that's it. I think Tom Blythe is handsome and a good actor, but he didn't really have much to work with in the movie. He just ended up being an introverted hot guy who really wants to live in Ohio. And I'm like, okay, Tom, you are clearly not from Ohio, so I don't know who you think you're fooling. This is clearly a British posh man rather than, you know, whatever the character was supposed to be about. So the fact that we got that kind of sanitization in the People We Meet on Vacation movie, and now we're approaching the Beach Read movie with an even wider discrepancy with Patrick Schwarzenegger playing this kind of character, it does not lead to a lot of confidence. So in conclusion, I think the Beach Read movie is a culmination of many issues in Hollywood movies in general. I think the director and the actors have their work cut out for them. I think the universal backlash that they have had is going to add pressure for them to get it right. And while I don't think that they will do any recasting because that would set a bad precedent, I do think that maybe they will revisit the movie and put in more time and consideration for improving the script or including more emotional moments with Gus so that Patrick can flex his acting skills a bit more and try to like prove himself. Whether that will be successful remains to be seen. We'll see in like a year from now. I have no personal investment in this, so I'm just gonna be reacting to the movie with Elias and cashing my check. But good luck to the rest of y'all. My prediction is that this movie will probably be similar to People We Meet on Vacation, where it will be a fine romance movie on its own, but in context of the source material, the die-hard book fans are probably going to be disgruntled because it's not going to capture the essence of the story. And I think the casting for future Emily Henry movies from now on will be more diverse to counteract having a Republican Nepo baby in this one. There will be karmic retribution. So that sums up the current situation of the Betrayed movie. I would love to hear, what do you think about not only this specific situation or whether Patrick is going to be capable of playing Gus, but whether you think do privileged people, whether that's actors or authors or artists in general, have the capacity or possibility to portray characters from humbler backgrounds authentically, even if that is outside of their lived experiences. Theoretically, I think yes, but this specific example is such an extreme discrepancy that it's really challenging whether that can be the case. I would love to hear your thoughts about that, and I'm sure we will gab more in the comment section. But until then, I will see you next time. I'm pretty sure by the time that I post my next video, my book is going to be released in the world. So for those of you who are on that journey with me, definitely make sure to fill out the form. If you pre-order the book, you can get bonus items with your receipt. I'm also doing a book tour at a bunch of cities in the first week of June. So if you are in the area, come swing by and say hi. We can talk more about books and character choices and writing. Otherwise, I will see you next time for my next video. Bye!
Oh girl, why are you leaving me so